And welcome back. Our guest tonight is Michael Cargill of Central Texas Gunworks. If you were watching the Alex Jones radio show today, you heard him right after Vigo Morrison. Alex was pretty excited about both those interviews, but Michael is here. He is a Second Amendment advocate, a leader in his community. He's going to talk to us about all things Second Amendment. Thanks for joining us, Michael.
Thank you for having me.
All right, now, there's a lot of stuff, but, I told you this off the record, off camera, that the reason we have you in studio is because Alex was watching one of your debates last week, a town hall debate, and Alex was like, we need to get that guy on the show. I was like, Alex, man, I talk to that guy like every 2 weeks. He's at every event I go to. And I was like, well, I haven't talked to him yet. So that's what brought you here in the studio. Just tell us a little bit about that debate.
Awesome. Yes, we had a debate in Georgetown, and it was a town hall meeting setting in the courthouse, and they wanted to focus on gun control in America, and basically, they invited members of the Brady campaign and some other individuals in the community to discuss gun control and about taking Americans' gun rights away from them. Right,
that's pretty much what it was. And I'm sitting here and I'm looking at it, and they have one, you have a whole panel of people up there, but there's one lady in particular that struck my interest. She was somebody from the crowd. Lady comes up and she says, hey, I was raped and I wish I had a gun. And, they field the questions back to the panelists, and nobody really had a good explanation as to why this woman doesn't need a gun, or why she needs a gun and maybe has only 7 bullets, or whatever the rhetoric may be.
Right. You have some people that have that mindset of, just like the Virginia Tech shooting, that when the shooter came into the one room and fired a few shots and then left that room, went to a different room, one guy that was laying on the floor grabbed the only weapon he could, which was his cell phone,
right,
and dialed 911. And being on the phone 20 minutes with the 911 operator, the shooter then came back into the room again, ended up shooting him in the rear. And then a young lady next to him grabbed his phone, and the shooter went out again. And then she's on the phone with 911. And then the shooter comes back into the room and continues shooting.
Right.
And they will tell you that in a situation like that, they still believe that anyone with a concealed handgun license would not have been able to help them.
And that's the whole thing. Like, well, what if you missed? Okay, what if I scared the guy away?
Right.
And that was one of the things. I think that's the last time I actually saw you was at the rally at the Capitol, and that was one of the very things that you were marching for was carry on campus. Tell us about that.
Right. I'm a big supporter of concealed carry on campus because back when I was in the military, I got a phone call by way of the Red Cross said that I had a family emergency. I need to come home. So I went home to find out that my grandmother decided that at 70 years old, she was going to travel back to college to get a college degree. My grandmother only got a high school education. So at 70, she wanted to become a nurse. Well, while she was traveling from a college library, sitting at a bus stop waiting for a bus to come, a guy came along, mugged her, and raped her.
Wow, at the bus stop?
At the bus stop. And I decided at that point that I would make sure that every female in my family had the tools they needed to protect themselves. It's not about, being able to carry a police officer on your back or your shoulders. It's not about me helping women out. It's about empowering them to protect themselves and not needing a man to do that for them.
And that's exactly what we see, because when we talk to these people at the town halls, and we talk them at the the debates, the marches, wherever they may be, and they're for stricter gun control, they say, well, if you have a problem, call the police. And the thing is, 2 minutes. Okay, let's say the cops do get you at 2 minutes. How much damage can be done in 2 minutes? I don't want to wait for the police officer to get there. As well-intentioned as he may be, as well-armed as he may be, that's not helping me right now in this moment.
Right. We had a shooting at University of Texas back in September 2010. Guy with the AK-47 came onto the campus, shot a couple rounds in the air, went into the library, went upstairs, shot, and killed himself. Do you know who the first police department was that arrived on the scene?
Who was that?
It was APD, not UTPD. The first police officer that arrived on the scene, you know how long it took him to get there after the first shots were fired?
How long was that?
It was 20 minutes. Your longest shootouts take place in 12 minutes. Your longest shootouts take place in 30 seconds. So 12 minutes to get there. The first police officer that arrived in the scene did not go into the building right away. You want to know why?
Why?
Because the shooter had an AK-47, and he was a motorcycle cop with a handgun. And he was waiting for backup to arrive, more firepower. See, I don't want to be that person that's waiting for police to come and save me. I want to have the tools I need to protect myself and to protect my family.
And you brought up a very good point there, because the police get here, now the police are here, and I'm not mad at the cop. He was outgunned. whatever the situation may have been, but now you have to wait for, more backup to arrive, possibly a SWAT team. How long does it take a SWAT team to get together to get out there on the road?
Correct. And people will tell you that, well, what if the police officer arrive at the scene and see the CHL holder with the gun? They're going to, mistake that person as a shooter. No, that's not going to happen like that. That CHL holder, when he gets that person in sight, will deploy that firearm, stop that individual, reholster that firearm, and then start giving first aid to the other people that have been shot.
Exactly.
By the time the paramedics get there, that person will need first aid from giving first aid.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. People who have a CHL, responsible gun handlers, they're not going to run around like a John Wayne movie waving their gun in the air. They're going to wait until the moment, if that should ever occur, pull out, draw down, fire, and then reholster. You made a very good point. But you also brought up another point that a lot of people will criticize. Well, the guy in this particular situation had an AK-47. Why does this guy need an AK-47? Nobody should have an AK-47. What would you say to somebody like that?
Well, no one needs a Mercedes, no one needs a BMW, but we all want them, so we can afford to buy them. So, don't tell me what I cannot have. This is the United States of America, and that's why it's called the land of the free, land of the brave.
Right. All right, now there's a lot of topics I want to talk about with you. We had an article about you earlier this year, back in January. Texas gun shop owner calls for Groupon boycott after deal is nixed. Tell us about that.
Oh, yeah. We did a deal with Groupon, and we did a concealed handgun license class for 2 people. And so the deal went live, and after 1 day of the deal going live, my Groupon rep gave me a call, and they said, man, Mike, your deal is going great. It's looking like it's going to sell out. Can we increase the amount of people that can purchase the deal? I told them, sure. So go ahead and let's, double it or triple it. Whatever you want to do, I'll go ahead and sign, the contract or send you an email, and we'll make it happen.
Right.
Because we do everything in writing. They said, great. So they went forth and do great things. That next morning, I came into work. He called me up. He said, well, Mike, the CEO of Groupon has decided to suspend all gun deals, anything related to gun ranges, shooting clays,
shooting classes, groups,
right,
anything. Yeah.
Anything dealing with guns, they're going to cancel those deals. And I said, why? The deal's going great. Well, because of the incident in Connecticut and what's going on.
So now we have to stop everything gun related.
So now we're going to focus on certain tools. It's okay, to have a deal where you go to a porn studio or something like that, but it's not okay to have, the gun deal. Where people are actually learning safety and learning the laws and how to protect themselves.
It's such a knee-jerk reaction because there's an incident. Just like the recent incident with this reporter on Rolling Stone. I don't know if you heard it on the Alex Jones radio show today before you came on. They were talking about the reporter, and his car allegedly caught fire, burst into flames, when he struck a tree. And I'm wondering what Mercedes has to say in retort of that. I'm pretty sure Mercedes isn't going to be happy with somebody saying that their car just burst into flames if it is to strike something.
Right. We're targeting lawful gun ownership in this country. We're not going after the criminals. Here in Texas, just like you said about accidents, you have over 1,000 fatalities here in the state of Texas this year so far. 1,000 fatalities. Okay, on our Texas highways.
Right.
You ask them how many people have been killed by firearms. You're not going to come up with 1,000.
Right. And that's the thing, because we see all these groups, they're saying, well, we need this to protect the children. We need this to protect the children. I actually have this article right here. It says 15-year-old son of deputy shoots burglary suspect. So this is a situation where a child was left home alone. I believe he had his sister at home with him at the time. Somebody breaks into the house. The young man pulls out his father's AR-15, repeatedly shoots 2 suspects, hits them both. Lo and behold, a kid actually knows how to aim, hits them both, drives them away. But then you have people saying this kid should have never been home alone with these weapons.
No, and Texas law allows for that. It's called Penal Code Section 46.13. There's a section in it that says that if your child gets access to your firearm to protect themselves or the family, then there's no prosecution for that. It gives you a little way out. So, hey, we look out for people, that break into our homes and the kids are home and they get access to the firearm and use it responsibly to stop that threat. Exactly.
And speaking more on that, we have this home alone 12-year-old shoots intruder. Now, this is a young lady in Oklahoma. She was home alone. Somebody breaks into the house. She calls mom, what do I do? Mom says, grab the gun, run to the closet. Young lady hides in the closet, hoping to be undetected. The gentleman or the intruder comes to the door, opens the door, it's wiggling the handle, she shoots through, lo and behold, hits the guy.
And see, we talk about a plan all the time in class. You got to have a plan. You need to have a plan of what you're going to do to protect yourself and your family. I tell people, if someone breaks into your house, What is your plan? What are you going to do? Where's that gun located? Is there around the chamber? Is it on safety? What are steps that have to take you to fire that gun? And so I actually try to get them to get a plan. If someone breaks into my home at 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm going to get all of my family members into a safe room. We have a code word, you have the alarm. If that code word is used, the alarm goes off, I want everyone to make it into the safe room. They make it into that safe room. In my safe room, I have a monitor where I can see my cameras 360 degrees around my house. Every entrance of an exit to my home has a camera. I can see as far left as the left side of my neighbor, as far right to the right side of my neighbor, every entrance of an exit to my home. They break into my home, my family members are accounted for. I'm not going to accidentally shoot one of my loved ones. I want to stop that threat. So it's about having a plan and protecting your family, because when it boils down to it, no one's going to protect you or your family. Police are not going to arrive there in enough time.
Right. That's a very, very good point, because you get all these people, and even people who are responsible gun owners, the situation they run into. If somebody, lo and behold, breaks into my house, I don't want to accidentally shoot a family member. So I heard you talk about things such as code words and places to go. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Right. I use a code word like in my shop. We have a code word event. There's an emergency inside the shop. We're doing a concealed handgun class of about 60 people one Saturday morning. And I had a class of 30-something odd number on one side and another class of about 25 and some odd number, total of 60 on another side of the building. And we're doing a concealed handgun class, and everyone was on break. They were, in the restroom, shopping, or doing whatever outside, smoking a cigarette. And the guy came into the shop, and he wanted to buy a gun. He wanted to buy a gun to kill somebody, and he was shaking, and he had the cash to buy that gun, and he was going to buy that gun, and nothing was going to stop him from buying that gun. Well, my staff used the code word. And when they kicked that code word in, which, never been used before, they used the code word. I said hi to the guy, and I identified what the issue was, and I hit the silent alarm. And then get the police rolled in that direction. And so I engaged that individual, gave him the paperwork, said, well, I'm going to help you buy that gun. Here's your paperwork, and you say you got the cash? All right, you have all the cash. I want to help him buy that gun. And then police showed up. We got him outside, and when we got him outside, his girlfriend, some other people showed up. About 10 police officers showed up. There was a big fight outside in the parking lot, not in my shop.
Right.
It's up to me to make sure I keep my employees safe, my customers safe, and I want that to happen outside, not in my shop.
Have you heard anything about that since then? Have you followed up at all?
Yes, they actually took him to get a mental eval done.
Okay. All right. Well, see, that's a situation where a mental evaluation may be necessary, but we hear all these people saying, well, for somebody to purchase a firearm, we want them to have a mental health evaluation, but under the new Obamacare, it says that no interactions between you and your physician are private anymore. So it's like you're mad at, lo and behold, maybe the Spurs lose tonight. Right. I'm mad at the Spurs loss, so I'm gonna go out and kill somebody, and then, oh, you're gonna kill somebody, Mr. Smith? Well, let me report this, and then next time you go into the gun shop, you get flagged.
Right, exactly, and that's the one thing we're afraid of. Like our soldiers, our soldiers are deployed overseas and in a hostile situation. They return back home, and they have some issues dealing with what took place overseas, actually shooting someone and those issues. Well, then they label them with PTSD. When they get back home, some people feel that, well, since they're labeled with PTSD, we should take their firearms away from them. And then they'll turn around and redeploy them back into that war zone.
Exactly.
It's okay to have your firearm when you're overseas protecting someone else's constitutional rights or someone else's freedom, but when you're here in the United States, we're going to take yours away.
Yeah, and we see this. They've been demonizing veterans, coming after the gun rights, demonizing them in all the shows and so forth. But then again, most veterans here, if they own a rifle, it's probably a semi-automatic, even though they're shooting fully automatics, flamethrowers, God knows what, over there overseas. But I don't want to focus just on that. Let's get back onto this. We get another document cam shot. Now, this is a situation, a group in Houston, I believe they've done this in other cities as well. They're giving out shotguns in high crime neighborhoods, and like I said, I believe they are doing this other places. Do you agree with this strategy? I agree
100%. We need to give the power back to the people, not go to the local police department and turn your guns in for $5 or whatever it is.
Since we'll get back to this Houston thing, but I want everybody to know, I've talked about this before, but I want everybody to know this. In states such as Arizona, state of Gabby Giffords, where Gabby Giffords got shot, when you turn in your gun to the police, they don't destroy it, they resell it. Which is to say the gun that shot Gabby Giffords could be back out on the street today because they resell it. And they also do it I believe they do it in a suburb of Chicago. So you think about that next time you go to turn your guns and they give you a little dinky $25 gas card, they're going to resell your AK-47, your AR-15. Yeah, there you go, right there. Arizona law forces cities to resell guns from buyback programs. So there you go. Just keep that in mind.
So it's not really about safety, is it?
It's not about safety. It's about making money.
When it boils down to it, it's about making money.
Okay, I'm sorry. Now I interrupt. Now tell us about these shotguns in these high crime areas.
Yes, we need to empower, the families to protect themselves. We need to focus on families because law enforcement is just a phone call away. Yes, give the shotguns to the families so the families can protect themselves because the police are not going to arrive there in enough time. So I applaud this organization that's donating firearms to families and to the poor, the less fortunate. Because even our concealed handgun program that we have here in Texas, it costs money to take a class. You have to pay for the class and then get the license, the fingerprinting done, and all that stuff. So we've kind of gotten away from, like Vermont, in the state of Vermont, where it's constitutional carry. Everyone can carry openly or concealed without a license. We've gotten away from that, and it's all about money now. Yes, I agree with that 100%. Constitutional carry, because everyone should have that right to protect themselves. You shouldn't have to go get special permission from Big Brother to carry a handgun.
Right. All right, now, Mike, I want to get your opinion on this. We saw recently President Obama, he went down to Mexico, and he's standing there in front of a big crowd, and everybody's cheering him on. He says, the reason for gun violence in this country is because these guns came from the U.S., which is true. But they came, not all of them, but a good number of your more exotic guns, I guess you would say, came from the United States of America under Operation Fast and Furious that gave guns to Mexican drug cartels. Now, we hear all this rhetoric about background checks and stricter gun control, but we gave, under this administration, weapons to Mexican drug cartels. And the defense I always hear is, well, we had Iran-Contra and we had these other things. And I'm not saying we didn't, but this administration gave weapons to Mexican drug cartels.
Right. Just like what the government's doing right now and focusing on giving arms to another country right now, they're going to let the same thing happen there that's happening in Mexico. We need to decriminalize marijuana and take that control away from the drug cartels, and then hold the administration accountable for what they're doing in selling arms or tracking arms or whatever they think they're doing, because that's not helping the problem. They need to focus on their laws. They know when a gun's being purchased, and they're tracking all that stuff. And so they need to focus on on their side of the house and leave the people, the American people, out of it.
Now, I don't have an article for this, but it just popped in my head when we were discussing the topic of Mexicans, and this boils down to more Hispanics. But on the background checks for guns, I believe it changed in the past year, where it has an additional box for people of Hispanic origin. Are you familiar with that?
Yes.
Okay, so when you saw that, what did you think about that?
Yeah, because they added a different box now. You have 10A, 10B,
yes.
Not Hispanic or Latino, or Hispanic or Latino. And then you pick 10B and say white, black, or Asian, or whatever. Right. And
the reason they say that's for is to track, these, I guess, supposed guns going to Mexico or whatever Hispanic countries, gang violence, whatever.
We do something a little different in Texas, since we actually border a foreign country. In Texas, if you purchase 2 handguns or 2 long guns in a 5-day period, they've actually forced the gun store to fill out a form and report you to the FBI without your knowledge.
Right.
Okay, so because we're bordering Mexico. So that's one thing that I don't think people are aware of.
I'm glad you mentioned that. People know that now.
I'm against universal background checks because I don't think that we should focus on individuals and one person being able to sell a gun or a firearm to another private individual. That's one thing that we should do on the gun store side of the house. We do background checks in the gun store. If a gun store goes to a gun show to sell a gun in a gun show, they have to do a background check. They have to the person has to fill out the form. We have to call the FBI and the NICS and do the background check in the gun show, gun store, as long as you're an FFL, a federal firearms license.
Right. So. Now, I want to go back to the debate briefly, then we'll get back to our articles when we saw you in the debate last week. Somebody brought up the point that, he goes to a gun show and he sees all these licensed dealers selling thousands of guns and all that. And then you had a retort to that. What was your retort?
Well, the thing is, he said that, he sees private individuals selling thousands of guns.
Okay.
And I said, well, if you see a private individual selling thousands of guns, I just want you to know that's a felony. That's illegal, and you need to report them to the ATF.
Can you explain to us why that is?
Because if you're selling firearms for profit, then that's illegal according to the ATF. Okay, if you want to just sell your one particular gun, your 5 guns or whatever that you have in your stash, you can do that at the gun show. But when you get to the point where it's a business for you, then that becomes a felony.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. That makes sense to me. All right, now I want to go on to the racial views of guns, because we see so many people saying that guns are for white people, their guns are to oppress a specific race or class or whatever. We have this article from the LA Times. LA Times announces white men are terrorists. They're not jihadists. They are white, right-wing Americans, nearly all with an obsessive attachment to guns, who may represent a greater danger to the lives of American civilians than international terrorists.
Well, in my family, we're all, black, African American. I actually was raised by a retired minister, and he was 96. My great-grandfather was 96 when he died. My great-grandfather used to always have this Bible with him, and he would say to me, Michael, I like to bring everyone the Lord. He always had that Bible. My great-grandfather would open up that Bible. In the middle of that Bible, there was a hole cut out. He said, Michael, I like to bring everyone the Lord. My great-grandfather would reach into that Bible, and he would take out a revolver. And he said that when I cannot bring them the Lord, I will send them to the Lord. So personal safety is for everyone. It's
right.
Not just for whites, blacks, Asians, or whatever. It's for everyone. Everyone's concerned about that, and everyone's got guns. Certain people are more concerned about knowing the laws and keeping themselves out of the system than others. I said on the show earlier that we have over 1 million people that are locked up in this country. Getting to the race issue, 1 million people locked up. Out of that 1 million, majority of them are black, are African American. So those are the ones that are going to be faced and having to deal with new laws, new gun control laws.
Exactly.
Because you're going to give tools to law enforcement to go after, put more blacks, lock them up in jail with these new gun laws. And so
I definitely agree with that. But I want people to know it's beyond a racial issue, because we see things like in Florida, a man was charged with 5 felonies for releasing balloons. I'm not sure if you saw that article or not. I'm dead serious. This guy, he was out, I believe he was getting a Valentine's gift for his sweetheart or whatever. They were out. He says, hey, baby, I love you. And he releases some balloons. Cop pulls up. Excuse me, sir, did you just release those balloons? Like, yeah, I'm just hanging out. Shack, take him to the paddy wagon, and now this guy got hit with 5 felonies.
Wow.
I'm not exactly sure, what happened to him after that, but just the notion that you can be charged for something so simple, something so meaningless, is just another attempt to get everybody into the system.
Right. And I'm curious what the charge was on that.
It was, I don't know, maybe we can pull that up real quick.
And I tell you, a felony, you get charged with a felony. That means you, according to the federal government, you cannot possess or own a firearm.
And that's the whole point. That's the exact point, because people think of felons, your big-time drug pushers or your violent offenders, people such as that. They don't think about somebody releasing balloons as a potential felon. We see people getting arrested for selling lemonade. I'm not necessarily saying that's a felony, but we've shown those videos. Just anything is a felony now.
Right.
I mean, just thinking outside the box is a felony. But that's okay. We won't belabor that point. I want to go back to this racial issue. I have this article right here. Danny Glover's claim versus the history of racism and gun control. Were you familiar with what Danny Glover said?
No.
This happened, I guess, back in February.
Okay.
And he said the Second Amendment was basically, is to protect slave owners. That was the history, the genesis of the Second Amendment, is to protect slave owners. No,
the original intent of the Second Amendment is so that the people can protect themselves from their government.
Exactly. And I mean, this was a mild internet meme at the time. I believe Ben Swan made an article about this. But basically, somebody was asking Danny Glover. I believe he was at a college giving a speech, and they say, "Hey, Danny Glover, what do you think about guns?" Because I guess Sandy Hook had happened recently. And what do you think about guns? He says, the gun laws in this country were to protect the slave owners. But then we think about some of the first gun laws in this country were just the opposite. They were imposed on freed slaves, and not just guns, but any type of weapon, swords, or whatever type of instruments that they had at the time. Right.
And I believe the original, when they actually started gun control, and it targeted the black community and slaves and back in that time frame of. Let's take the guns away from the slaves. That way the slaves can't protect themselves. And to me, I want to learn from the Jews. I definitely want to learn from the Jews, because you remove my firearm, then you're going to, take my money, control me, and take my home, and everything else goes.
Right.
Once you take that gun, everything else goes. And my motto is, when they come after my guns, I'm going to give them my bullets first.
Yeah, okay. Now, I think we actually found that article about the balloons. I'll just make sure everybody knows I'm not making this up. Okay, so the guy was charged with, here it is, man faces 5 years in prison for releasing balloons on beach as a romantic gesture.
Wow.
Let's see, I see felony up there. I see the crime against the environment. That's what it was.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's real. Yeah, I think a couple of paragraphs above that, it talks about the felony. Yeah, according to the Sun Sentinel, let's see, it's an act of love, but a felony. So there you go. There you go. Just another attempt to get you in the system. Now, our time is coming short, but I want people to know that you're not just all about guns, you're about other activist issues as well. As a matter of fact, the first time I met you was down in San Antonio at a RFID student protest with Andrea Hernandez, a family we've documented on this show. And it had nothing to do with guns. You were just out there concerned. And tell us why you were there.
It's about life, liberty, and prosperity. It's about keeping government transparent and the people's business private. And government should not be tracking people. We should not be listening in on U.S. citizens. They need to be transparent, but our business needs to be private. What goes on at my home is my business. Stay out of my home, stay out of my bedroom, and leave my guns alone.
Yeah, I mean, when I'm at home on the toilet, I don't necessarily have anything to hide, but I don't think that's anybody's business. But we come to the end, so can you give us your final thoughts?
Yeah, and like I said, my motto, and my name is Michael Cargill, owner of Central Texas Gun Works, and I like to remind people.
That's here in Austin.
Yes, here in Austin, Texas. Stay on target, stay on message. Life, liberty, and prosperity. And when they come knocking at your door to take your guns, then give them your bullets first.
There you go. Michael Cargill, Central Texas Gun Works. Thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you, sir.
All right. That's a good interview. And that was Michael Cargill. I definitely encourage you, if you are in the city of Austin or in Central Texas, go to centraltexasgunworks.com. Also go to the physical location. There's a lot of great stuff there, not just guns, also concealed carry and so forth right there at Central Texas Gun Works. And also, if you'd like to support this broadcast, you can go to prisonplanet.tv. You can see the Alex Jones radio show, the nightly news, the special reports. All that is right there at prisonplanet.tv, including that weird Bilderberg thing. Oh man, I can't get over that thing. I hate just looking at it. But don't go back to Marco.